So in 2009, the Fair Work Act was introduced. Thank you very much. We did a survey last year, and we know that the Fair Work Ombudsman, which has sort of the charge of running the Fair Work Act and making sure everybody behaves, has been targeting marketing, advertising and PR sector. None of our members have at this stage been exposed, but as having bad practice, and we just want to, and we know that a lot of our members have really good practices. So we consulted with academics and legal advisors. You can imagine this was a 6-month process, and we published these guidelines, which are not just about the law, but they're actually about having a great learning experience. And they're about really helping the students do well, making it really easy, and it's identified a couple of points so that we can be ethical and professional in all our interns. So this is available, freely available on the web. The second edition has the new minimum wage in it, okay? So it includes the definition of an internship versus work experience versus a student worker. An official intern is only somebody that is enrolled in a subject that requires practical work placement. Okay, they may be enrolled in a communication degree, but if they are not in a subject, then you may be actually having a student worker and not paying them appropriately. Okay, so make sure, it's really easy to check. Ask them for their subject number, or what subject is this for, and ask them for the name of their academic supervisor. And that's it. That's all you need to do. Send an email down there, Monash, and we've got another uni in here. Send an email to the supervisor, hi, what are the requirements? There will be some formal reporting and evaluation requirements. The other thing that, how to actually manage and supervise is covered in here. The other thing is that whether or not they are an intern or a student worker that you are paying, you must put in place clear policies and agreements with them on things such as intellectual property. Now we know that a database, direct marketing company, had their entire database lifted. Somebody just copied it onto a USB drive and walked out with it, right, and started sending them their product. Intellectual property, internet usage, non-disclosure agreement. Anybody here in a communication consultancy, you're talking about takeovers, you're talking about prices, you're dealing with, you might have the Catholic Church as a client at the moment going through the Royal Commission. These things are things where we are helping people to communicate fairly and openly, but we will be talking about really difficult situations in the office. And they may just overhear something when they're bringing coffee into a client. They have to be covered by an NDA. Right? If you don't have that NDA, they can go back and do a presentation in class about the upcoming merger of BHP and Xstrata. Right? Make sure you are covered by an NDA, as per any employee arrangement, which we'll be hearing about in a minute. Finding good interns. There are fabulous interns out there. In the guide, it does actually tell you the PRIA website. It lists all the tertiary programs in Australia that are accredited with the PRIA. But you may have other universities that approach you and advertise, select them as you would for a normal candidate, and good luck with it. So there is also the other thing that I was just going to say, the PRIA Registered Consultancies Group, members have a free workplace hotline. So you may have just a quick question about an intern, ring the hotline and they will have some legal advice for you. And if it gets really tricky, ring Joanna. Okay, so do you pay interns? Not if they are enrolled in an academic subject. But you might want to, so please do. A lot of students are working, putting themselves through university. They give up work in the shoe store or at the cafe to come and work with you full time. So, for the 4 weeks or the 12 weeks, if you can pay them, please do. But it is not required by law if they are doing this as part of their academic subject. In that case, you can fully pay them as a student worker, or you may actually cover them some expenses and some other things, depending on how you go with that. But if they are not doing this as part of their academic requirement, you can expose yourself to hefty fines and publicity exposure in BNT and Umbrella. And the other thing is that you will also then be put on the black band. All the academic advisors do know where there are good work placements, and so please make sure that you work with them and promote your business as being one of the really good host employers. The award rate, we're not covered in PR by a modern award. Thank you to the RCG. A couple of years ago, there was a move to put in a modern award for all workers in advertising, branding, public affairs, photography, etc. That was thrown out by the full bench of the Commission, and that was really due to the RCG's great efforts back then. But it doesn't mean that one of the reasons they threw it out was because we pay people very well and we have very good conditions and great diversity in our business. And it certainly doesn't mean that we can't pay people the minimum rate. The minimum rate is now, as of 1st of July, as of Sunday, $16.37 per hour for a full-time employee. And if that's a casual person, you have to multiply that rate to take into account super, leave loading, sick leave, all of that sort of thing. The multiplier used to be 23%, but it has now changed to 24%. Okay, so that means if you have a student working in your business that is not part of an internship program, you need to be paying them at least $20.30 per hour. A couple of things with people have asked, what happens how long can I employ someone, have an intern before they become an employee? Look, 5 days a week, they're sort of work shadowing, they don't know what's going on, that's usually okay. Anything more than 10 days and you're pretty well going to be done, right? They'll know what's going on, they'll be doing some proper work. You can charge interns out, even if you're not paying for them, interns. But if you've got somebody who's in your office for more than 5 days, really start paying them. If you've got some client's uncle's daughter that you have to have, put them in for a week, all very good, and then send them away. Okay? So it's really how long are they in there? Or if you're doing something like Fashion Week and you've got all these interns and you're not paying them, and you would usually have to pay somebody, so even if they're only there for a couple of days, if they are replacing paid workers, then be very careful about that situation. The other situation that you can actually get students to do volunteer work is in the not-for-profit sector, but you need to ring up Fair Work Australia and do that. Quite often what you would do is get the internship to have an arrangement with the Cancer Council or the Benevolent Society, and then come and be placed inside your office for the campaign. There is some room to move within the Fair Work legislation on pro bono or not-for-profits. Not-for-profits can have volunteer workers, so that may be, and I know a lot of people like to put their internships on pro bono interns on pro bono clients, non-commercial clients. So that's an area where you may be able to have some volunteering. But you can the Ombudsman has a hotline, ring them up, have a chat. We have workplace advice, and there are people like Joanna who are just fabulous. So I might hand over to Joanna, who is hosting us here today. And always, as stated, with your contracting, interns, you do need to have some basic contracts in place, and it's not just about interns, it's about the whole of it, which is why we're really, really pleased for Joanna to be here today.